Today I plan to show you how to felt stones. I'm felting them because of a friend who decided this was a good way for her to remember her son, who had passed away far too young. He was a young man who loved beauty in unexpected places and was well loved by his mother and family. His mother is an artist and crafter, and this is a way that she felt would remember him. When I explained it to other people, they asked if this was something that would be therapeutic if they've lost loved ones, and I have to say the answer is a resounding yes. And so today I want to show you this process. It's an imperfect process on my part. My friend who explained it to me probably does it a whole lot better, but it doesn't really matter. There's something beautiful in imperfection as well. What I have before me are the supplies I need. I have a small container that I will be using to put soapy hot water. I have roving, which is the cleaned and carded wool. It's all dyed in this case. And what we're doing is felting, which will be a chemical process that shrinks and binds the wool to itself around stones. I also have a selection of stones. Some of mine are small, some are a bit larger. I tried to stay away from things that are too jagged. This one might be a little problematic, but since it's small, I'm probably okay. And the reason for that is that when you do the felting process, it involves agitation, and sometimes you pull the felt or roving away from the edges, or it breaks through when the stone is rough. It's okay. I'm planning to leave these around, and if some of the stone shows through, it's not the end of the world. What else do I have? I have little stocking knee highs that will be used to wrap around the stones and help me to keep everything in place. I have some tool that I will use similar to sandpaper after I do the first level of agitation. This helps to really break things down when it gets tighter. And I have a sponge with a rough edge that will even do the final bits of finish. I also have Dawn, one of the recommended dish detergents, but from what I hear, it doesn't really matter if you don't use Dawn. I'm going to put some of that into my container, and I'm going to put in very hot water. The reason for the container is because you use a lot of water, and this way you can keep part of it in a minimal amount of water and not waste too much. So I fill my container. I'm now going to pick a couple stones. I use two when I use a knee-high like this, and I'm going to pick some colors. I have a lot of different color roving. I will show you a pile that I've gotten. I get these at sheep and wool festivals. There are some yarn stores that sell it, and I'm sure you can find it online as well. It's roving, and it comes in all different colors. There are some roving that doesn't work as well for these. These have special curls and things. I don't use that for the stones because it doesn't mesh into the rest of the roving as well. I do have some that's a little shiny, interesting colors, and I might use some of that today. I pick the colors just based on what I'm feeling. It might be based on a particular person that I want to remember and his or her favorite colors, or it might just be what I like personally. Today I think I'm going to pick this bright pink and put some of that at the bottom. I'm going to stretch it out and take my stone and wrap it around in one direction. See how I wrap it in one direction? Then I'm going to take another color, perhaps this peachy color, and wrap it in the opposite direction, so 90 degrees if you will. And that way it finishes off the edges, and it also might come through, the colors might come through. Some of this is a little unknown until you're finished. You don't really know what's going to come through in the agitation. Finally, on this one, I think I might pick some of this green. and I will go back around the first direction. That's what I typically do, is 3 layers. It seems to work fairly well. As I said, sometimes the edges of the stone might come through. I'm holding it fairly close together, and then I will slide this down into the toe of my stocking. And a little bit above that stone and its roving, I will tie loosely. And I'm going to do this again with another stone. This time, I think I will pick a darker color. Maybe this roving actually has a bunch of colors in it. It's meant to be spun into yarn with stripes, and so, or at least some colorway. So I'm going to wrap that around. And then I think I will go for some of this blue. It's nice bright colored blue. Stretch it out a bit and go, as I said, in the 90-degree direction against that. Get around the edges. And then something else. Perhaps orange will work well with this. And back around. Pull it nice and tight around there and slide that into the next part of the stocking and tie again. Now we're ready to start felting. I'm going to put these into the hot water and soap. Might even put just a dot of soap on each. Kind of helps. And then you gently, in this first step, in the water, in and out of the water, you gently rub the stones against each other. As you can see, I'm just rubbing them. The water, the hot water is important, the agitation is important. Felting really is a chemical process, and it's just, as I said, binding the wool to itself. It shrinks, as you think of any wool shrinking in the laundry, and that's part of what we're trying to do. And we're doing this gently so that we don't tear the wool in this first step. Gently rubbing them against each other, back and forth in the water. As you can see, I would be using a lot of water if I were running it at this time. And I'm just going to keep doing this for a couple minutes. I'm putting it back in the water and agitating them individually, and then I put them up against each other. Making a little bit of a mess, so make sure you do this in a place where you don't mind getting soapy water in places. You can see it's just a gentle process at this point. Make it a little tighter, get my hands a little closer in now, a little more agitated. And it feels like it's moving around on the stone. That's okay. You want to keep it fairly gentle though, so you're not moving it around too much. Again, we're trying to get it to stick to itself and shrink against itself without the stone coming through. And so being gentle with it is important so that we don't cause that eruption or break in the felted outside. It's feeling pretty tight now, so I think I'm probably ready for my next step, which is to take the stones out of the stockings. You'll notice, if it's working well, that the roving will actually stick some to the stocking. That's okay, just gently pull it away. Be careful not to pull it away from the stone. And it is a little loose against itself, so I'm going to have to work that some more. Put that back in the water while I'm waiting. And I'm going to do the same thing with my second stone. Oh, this one's sticking a little more than the last one did, so I just have to be careful not to, as I said, pull it away. You can hold the roving against the stone. Oh, I love the colors of this one. Boy, you just don't know what to expect until you're done. So put that back in, take the first one. This is where the tool comes in. I'm going to wrap that around my stone. Maybe put one more dot of soap on, and now I will do some agitation that's stronger. I can do this over the sink now and really rub a lot more vigorously. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm rubbing vigorously. And the tool helps, like I said earlier, similar to sandpaper, where you're finishing off the edges. You're also holding it in. And move it around. And this is really where you want some heavy agitation. Keep working it round and around in all different directions so that you make sure you get all the sides done. I think I mentioned earlier that this is somewhat therapeutic. If you're feeling angry or sad in your grief, this might be something that helps you get through that. And maybe you don't want to do this because of grief. Maybe you want to do this for a completely different reason. Maybe you just like the idea of felting stones. I like the idea that these are some natural parts of our world that are coming out in a beautiful stone. So I have stone, I have wool, and water. And I'm making something that I can leave in the world, or I can keep in my home, maybe on your desk, whatever feels good to you. But you can see how all of that roving is now shrunk down onto my stone. I'm going to leave that one aside and go into my second stone. Again, put it inside the tool. Put a drop of the dish detergent on. And go right ahead. Agitate. Get out that anger, that sadness, grief. Just have fun. The other thing that I like about this, because I'm a knitter, is I get to buy fairly inexpensive product and do something incredibly quickly. Unlike some of my scarves and sweaters and things that have taken months, this takes minutes. And I have something beautiful and I can share it, and it just feels good. All right, let's take a look at that. Rinse it. Wow, they look awesome. These are small for the ones that I normally do. I'm lucky to have a creek in my backyard, and so I can find plenty of stones. Perhaps you can find them in your neighborhood. The last thing I'm going to do is just take this and kind of look over the edges, see if there's anything that's a little unfinished.